And any comments on the agenda?
None for me.
Looks good. I would move the agenda as written.
Second.
There's one comment. I would like to say that I did ask Stephen to post the new charge to the solar siting committee, and so that might have been something that we, kind of reflection should have put on the agenda just to make sure that everybody knew about that change and saw that it's posted now on the site.
Yeah. So I have gone ahead and put it up there with the adoption date, and yeah, so it is live now.
It's great. So that would be the only, I guess that's it. So I think based on that, we can approve the agenda and maybe just note that we made that notation that is there kind of now guiding our discussion. Okay, any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Oh, actually, do we have to make a vote on the agenda?
Well,
I think we all approved.
moved, seconded, and you agreed. So that's pretty
Okay,
much
so that's
it.
good. That's good. As long as we can, no, we don't have Robert's Rules of Order there. Great.
Yeah.
And
Unanimous consent, I believe, is the word used, and we'll
exactly.
so noted.
Any public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay.
I see a hand up, Mary.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you could help me, I don't see the hand. So
James
oh,
in.
sorry. Thank you.
It's me, Jim Antal.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, great. How are you?
Good. This may be a welcome comment or be received as a peculiar comment. But I want to offer up the reality that this week in Montana, there will be a group of more than a dozen teenagers whose lawsuit is going forward in what is now in the legal battle against climate an unprecedented advance. And I just wondered, might it be possible every time this group meets to take 2 minutes toward the end of the meeting and ask, now, what would one of our grandchildren under the age of 15 say about what we have discussed today? So I just want to put it out there for the committee to consider. It seems to me in a time of NIMBYism that giving voice to young people and even to unborn generations is an important part of the work and the commitment that we all share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
John, you're muted.
Sorry. Just take a moment to say thank you for holding this meeting. I'm delighted that we're going to work on a consensus enhanced energy plan that the community can get behind. I'm sure you're aware that there is tremendous support in Norwich for solar energy, both as individuals and as a community. On Sunday, we will be assembling on the bridge to show the breadth and depth of this support. And, as it happens, last week I finally had my solar panels put on the roof. And today we had the entire house converted to electric heat pumps. And we are now in a position after 8 years in Norwich in which we've taken actions every day to be fossil free in our household from energy use. And this is a big moment for us. It took hard work. As you know, the Article 36 task force laid out a plan for making the whole town fossil free in our energy use. And we have gotten nowhere as a town. We want our leaders to lead us on that path urgently. The drought that we're experiencing now is what's going to destroy our forest as it becomes business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do want to just, at least as we're starting out this work, and at the last meeting, we did change the charge to the search committee just to read it to make sure everyone understands what our charge is, which is to ensure the town plan provides clear, accurate guidance regarding the development of solar energy projects in the town of Norwich, guided by the laws of the state of Vermont, bearing in mind the town's character, topography, location of critical utilities, and desires of all of its residents. The Solar Siting Committee will define the town plan clear criteria for any solar project requiring PUC Commission Section 248 process review. The committee will engage with other town groups such as the Energy Committee, the Conservation Committee, and will continue to welcome input during its meetings to hear feedback from the members of the public. The Solar Siting Committee will provide input to the efforts of the Planning Commission to develop an enhanced energy plan for the town of Norwich. That is our charge. And we're going to be very focused on that charge in the work ahead, because there's a lot of work to do on this. And with that, unless there are any additional comments, I think, Jan, you and Stephen are really kind of put together this agenda for the kind of thinking about what it means to do the, getting back to my, discuss the enhanced energy plan project components. I don't know whether you or Stephen would like to take over that part of it. And I know you did some additional work on the land use planning part of it.
Yeah, I can toss it over to Stephen. I went back and forth with him a little bit on this, but I would say in overview, the document that we put out, or that's in the packet, and the entire process of doing an enhanced energy plan this is a very helpful document. It's a very, it prescribes what you do. And if you read through the siting parts, it talks about exactly what we've been talking about: clear community standards, preferred sites, right, constrained sites, all this stuff. So I think it's a very useful document. And I think Stephen has the overview, because what we're doing is kind of a distributed action. Which pieces of this should be done by the full PC, other parties, and which ones are the focus of this group?
Yes.
So, Stephen, can you share that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got, let's see, just bear with me a second while I set this up. I have two screens here. So that, thanks. Okay, so I'm presuming you can all see my screen.
Yes, thanks. Yes. It looks great.
Yeah, okay. So, as Jan sort of alluded to, this document is very well constructed. It's very well laid out in terms of the steps we have to go through to adopt an enhanced energy plan. And sort of in my discussions with Jan and other members of the Energy Committee, I'd like to recommend, sort of three-part approach to this, which is, fortunately, the way the document is structured as well. So I would imagine that the Planning Commission would create a working group for this particular project that would be composed of one or two members of the Planning Commission and one or two members of the Energy Committee, with the assistance of Harry Falconer from Two Rivers, who's our sort of shared energy person who has hours for the town of Norwich. And that group would be sort of focused on, the data collection for the standard 4A through 4D targets, which is really just a data collection process. I mean, it's been done before. Our energy chapter via Appendix A or B sort of lays out, the sort of current, data points for these targets already, this process would essentially just be, bringing them forward 5 years, 7 years in some cases to sort of current day, and just providing a sort of, energy usage context, for the town of Norwich. So, I think that's a pretty atomic set of, items for a small group to work through. And, I, in my conversations with, Linda, I think the Energy Committee, if she's willing to speak for the Energy Committee, it's that's an approach that they'd support as well. I would also have that smaller separate group, work on some of the pathway standards, just in terms of laying out some considered thought on these topics, for efficient building use, transportation, to bring to the Planning Commission at large. My sort of vision for the Planning Commission would be that the Planning Commission would review all of the pathway standards, with information taken from the solar siting working group for the components they're working on, and this other subset, and then through Planning Commission debate and actions, they would approve all of these pathway standards.
So is it, I'm just trying to break it down, because the one that I noticed, and Mary, I had went back to Stephen today and asked, because it says pathways 8 under our agenda item here, and pathways 8, which is land use patterns and densities and compact villages and so forth, that to me seemed very much like a planning commission town plan activity. It's so, I think as we divide this up, there's the data section, which is, I think, so the analysis and targets, Stephen, you're saying that's the update the data.
Yeah.
There's a whole chunk of enhanced energy plan that has to have accurate data. Mm-hmm. Then there are a couple that I see. So the building use and transportation could have input from outside. Number 8 seems to very much be planning commission, town plan, planning commission, and then I would say 9 is ours. 9 is the group we're sitting in. Yeah. Well, 8, I think we would chime in on 8 some, but I don't see. I mean, we're saying something about 8 to the degree that we're talking about land use, meaning this is suitable,
where things can be cited. Yeah, so, what's suitable. But I guess I would think, yeah.
If you look at the list under, if you look at the list under 9, it includes the siting related land use topics. What are constrained sites? What are your what are your habitats?
That's probably where most of our work is going to be, and then we will give it on to the to the Planning Commission's enhanced energy group.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Stephen, I'm just trying to get logistics here. In the subcommittee world we live in, because as it stands now, if we wanted to play by the guidance set up by the select board, we would, and I'm not saying this is a bad, but we need to be aware of it. If we wanted to set up a working group that includes members that are not on the Planning Commission, and I wonder, because Energy Committee members have already been appointed by the select board. So actually, if we're just clumping members from existing groups, that might be, well within our purview, even under the select board's policy. And we could simply do that. We can notify them, say, we
Yeah,
have a working group to do an enhanced energy plan, and Harry Falconer is the only one, and he counts as staff, essentially, right?
right. In that context, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really familiar with Norwich's approach to these working groups. So I'll defer to your expertise here on how you think it's best to set it up within the local context.
I think the key point was the select board would like to be involved in appointing people who are doing the town's work, or at least talking to them or saying, yeah, and knowing what the charters are and so forth.
Yeah,
The fact that the Energy Committee has been through that already, they have a charter, the members have been approved by the select board, and the same for the Planning Commission. If we are assembling a composite group of those same people, I think we just do it under the auspices of the PC. We say
okay.
what that group's charter is, which is going to be pretty straightforward because it's creating the enhanced energy plan chapter, and then say who the members are and just notify the select board as a courtesy.
And I don't know, Jan, whether this is something that the entire planning commission will want to discuss. Just kind of the creation of this committee. There's
Oh, yeah.
information in this around. So I don't know. I think we're a little bit outside of the scope of this committee to be determining that, and that our
Yeah.
focus in this meeting should be on what is our role. What is our role,
Agreed.
rather than setting up, this discussion about how we're going to do it and how the select board approve it. We're out of
Yeah.
our charge right now.
Yeah.
John, is
Right.
this something about the work at hand?
Yes,
Please go ahead.
thank you. First of all, thanks to Mary for reading the charter of the group, which in my mind makes it pretty clear that the charter directs it to Planning Standard 9, which specifically mentions siting, and 9, A through H is a very comprehensive, paraphrase of the charter of that subcommittee. And to me, that should be the task of that subcommittee. Secondly, I haven't heard anything in the recent comments about the Conservation Commission, which clearly has a role in many of the standards that are set here. And I hope that you will include mention of the Conservation Commission whenever you mention the Energy Committee. Thank you.
Yes, we did say, I know we included Conservation Commission in some of the previous discussions. And to your point, Mary, about the whole PC, I think we can wrap back around, and we should wrap back around at a later meeting with them and say, here's what we're doing of our subset, and Stephen and I can try and do the overview. But we're working also from the discussion we had at the last Planning Commission meeting, which did enough of that to say, yes, enhanced energy plan and the charter of this subcommittee being the siting criteria and so forth. So I think we have enough to go on from the full PC to know what our chunk of turf is.
I think we know what our chunk of turf is, but in terms of who are the people who are going to be in that next discussion, I think that is not I think that's outside of the purview of this committee. And I suspect that, look at their capital planning issues, I think is just noted, there are conservation issues or energy issues or all sorts of issues. And so how, let's have the whole planning commission think about that if it's going to be a critical piece of the work of the commission. But for now, I completely agree that Standard 9 is where we want to focus our work and do and move forward together.
Agreed.
Okay, getting back to my
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the sort of, overall sort of working structure that Jan and I have discussed. And I think there's, I've been sort of looking back through this committee's records, and there's a lot of prior work that's been done, identifying constraints, et cetera, preferred sites. So I think, I mean, I'm optimistic that we can make this a fairly short engagement,
That would be
even though
delightful.
there is a lot of ground to cover. Maybe I'm just naive, but we'll see. So yeah, I mean, I think Mary would we have this planning commission meeting coming up on the 30th, and I know you wouldn't be able to attend. Could we make discussion of this subgroup a part of that agenda, or wait until October?
Why don't we wait till October? Seems like
Okay.
Jan
Yeah.
had things. Jan had
Yeah,
other
I
things to
think
discuss there.
that's fine. I think we
Yeah.
can do that in October. As long we have enough guidance for this group to get off and running and roll in the things we've already done and so forth. I think that, and we have enough to talk about on the 30th. It's a good thing for a regular meeting if we're going to sort of set up a new group that has a charter and pull in other groups. That's a good thing to do at a regular meeting time.
Okay.
And
Great.
Stephen, could you, I don't know whether, if you could gather some enhanced energy plans from other towns that you think are good models. And in particular,
Sure.
let's look at what they've put on standard 9 of, kind of what are the approaches to it. It might be, we don't need to rethink this whole thing.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's
see if we can find some, just excellent models.
Yeah. I can absolutely do that.
There's some references even in this document where it says the specific constraints were listed in Chelsea's or Royalton's, or they have some reference.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Colchester.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, the document provides some, and I can look regionally to see what works. And another sort of, well, I think this is, never mind, it's a task for the other group. So I think maybe because the pathway 9 is so dependent on the mapping exercise, it might make sense for us to sort of flip the script a little bit and look at the mapping components that are required to sort of as the data set for pathways 9, unless you guys feel comfortable with those, what the mapping is already.
No, let's go for it.
No,
Okay.
I think that's good.
Okay, so
is this document something that you created or that comes with the state guidance? Because it looks really helpful.
Sort of actually neither. It's the document itself comes from
so ChatGPT did it.
Notebook LLM, which is Google's tool. So I used it to make a mind map. So
there you go.
There you go. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't.
Oh, come on. If you get AI to do it, you get partial credit.
Okay, fantastic. That included pressing one button. So there you go. Excellent. So regional mapping standard 11 is really straightforward. It's just, or the municipal mapping standard 12, that's just the existing electrical generation sources, which is, I think, fairly nil aside from some solar installations in the town of Norwich. So municipal mapping standard 13, potential areas for development. This will create a map that includes new renewal potential, known constraints, possible constraints. So it sort of looks at raw potential for energy generation, for both solar, wind, in potentially other sources of energy generation.
Can I just ask the group, how are we going to deal with wind? Because we have not had the slightest bit of conversation about wind. And it's in here because the category is renewable generation. How do we want to address that?
I don't think that it's the role of the solar siting committee to talk about wind. Unless it becomes the matter of the enhanced energy. I think probably people have opinions about putting wind towers up here that would be a very long and complex discussion. So I think that needs to be with the full planning committee about that and about, bio. I mean, look, we've got a pretty significant biofuel plant that got put down on, at the Charlotte's old farm that I don't know that went through. I don't know how that was approved, et cetera, but I don't think it's I think it's outside of the solar siting committee's work.
I don't disagree. I'd say then we should just notify back to the parent group to say
Correct.
we're going to do 9, but not wind, or something to
It
that.
would be a very different siting conversation, and
So
yeah.
right, the criteria is different, the background is different, and so on.
And this is, I just want to make it clear that this is, we're talking about mapping at this point. So this doesn't precludes,
but it's
passing
in
the conversation off to other groups. But this is just sort of mapping potential, it's likely unsuitable due to regulated natural resources, et cetera. This is generating the mapped data set upon which we can make policy. So that's all. So, I don't think it,
it's in the narrative as well. If you look under like 9C, sufficient land for wind is listed as one of the categories under 9C.
okay.
And
Solar, hydro, biomass, et cetera. Yeah. Ernie.
Yeah, I'm just concerned, I'm just thinking about how sometimes, or probably all the time almost, wind siting and solar siting could be competitive or could compete with each other. And I think it's important for us to actually be part of, or at least aware of that, so that, for instance, how do we decide between solar and wind if both of them, let's say, might put out on the same spot, both of them might produce equal renewable energy? How do we decide? And the thing is that when it comes to the mapping, there'll be, I think, a lot of overlap between the two.
I think you're right.
And I think that we can't in this committee ignore wind. I think that's why it is in that standard where it sort of implies that we're involved with it. I mean, we really are. We call ourselves solar siting, but I mean, it really has to go beyond that in a lot of ways, because there's a definite interplay between solar generation, not just solar, but energy generation, renewable generation, and siting of the equipment. And I don't think we can ignore the other equipment just because it wasn't on our radar when we formed the committee, which is what I think really is the case.
Jan?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that there's a fair bit of overlap, and I'm thinking, well, where's the 3-phase power? things like that. You can't put it in scenic areas, and so there is overlap, and maybe some of the process of the selection, like the criteria and process, could be common. But I do think there's some separate, generally wind, if you're going to put solar in the bowels of an old gravel pit and wind wouldn't work there's going to be some distinctions. So maybe we can look for the commonalities and use them and point them out. Just wouldn't want to spend a lot of time on what's unique to wind in this group when we've got so much background thinking about solar.
That's not really what I was getting at. Is that what I was saying is that there will be times, and probably a lot of times, when any particular parcel we're looking at is applicable to either one of them, and it then becomes a calculation of which. I mean, are we going to take favorites? We're gonna pick sides. Is it going to be solar or wind, or how do we handle that?
Although Ernie, so many of the places that you're talking about, which would be, where you'd want to put a wind project, are going to be up on the ridge lines. And at least by our current town plan, that's not an appropriate place to put it for solar. At least we said we protect the ridge line. So if and I am certainly a supporter of that approach. And if that's the case, then I would imagine that would be the case for wind as well. And we don't want to have they're talking here about you need 25 acres of land for wind. That's a lot of land to be preparing for wind.
I do think it would be helpful to sort of recognize the sort of raw potential for both solar and wind at the beginning of our siting conversation, as well as the sort of known constraints and the possible constraints. So that'll really limit the field to, especially the known constraints. And we're talking about sort of class 1 and class 2 wetlands, FEMA floodways, river corridors. It sort of just eliminates those areas from the conversation in some ways. So I think it would be valuable as a mapping exercise to sort of go through what this prescribes, even for this group and for all groups. I mean, I think all of these constraints are going to apply to any renewable energy source.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bernie, your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I didn't know if you want to come and had another response.
No. That
Linda
window
Gray.
is so tiny here that I can't see the hand really.
I know. Linda, I just saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a couple comments. One is just to let you all know that from 2009, I have and can share an actual study of wind energy potential in Norwich. And so it will be useful for a future discussion separately. And I don't know whether the committee wants to be constrained by, outside considerations, but pretty much like utility scale when, beyond larger than residential, say community and utility scale wind in Vermont is dead. And it's pretty much because of sound rules from the PUC. So to a practical point, which may not govern what the Planning Commission wants to cover in the Enhanced Energy Plan, but just background, know that, nobody's going to be knocking on our door to try to develop wind in Norwich.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Thank you. That is helpful.
Yeah.
And it's
Stephen,
also helpful that if
Yeah,
there's,
can I just ask, Stephen, can you just confirm that with the regional commission? Just ask Two Rivers and say, this is our understanding about wind in Vermont. And if they say, yeah, that's the case, then that just makes our life simpler.
well,
Yes.
I would want to add though, that if sound is what's stopping all the wind projects because of, I assume, the health related impact of it, then we also might wish to make our town plan clear that at this time, wind is not welcome. That can obviously be reviewed in the future if there's, you know, if that there's a change of mind, and say it and align it with the actions of the PUC, because as we've said, we want this plan to align with the state law. And so if that is where the state is right now, then let's just make it clear so that we don't have some enterprising person or company coming in and trying to get something through.
Okay. So, you know, maybe before we talk more about the sort of mapping standards, does the group think that this is something that should be separated by energy generation type and therefore by group, or do we want to do the mapping exercise here or elsewhere?
I think we do it here. I think that we've just made a determination about wind. I don't think we have to worry about hydro, right? Just because it doesn't, you know,
Probably
won't be a
not.
thing. Yeah,
No.
and biomass and methane. Biomass is interesting, right? Because there is a you know, biomass down at Sweetwater Farm, and creating, you know, with some mixed reaction from the neighbors who find themselves in an inversion at times. And so I don't know whether or not that, if we're looking at everything that's noted on 9, whether or not that would be something to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would agree that we do the mapping here. We at least start with the mapping here, and then if we want to make little notes that say this, we're not addressing this part, or we want to put this back on the full PC, then we can do that. But I think the mapping is so integral to the siting criteria that we can't separate them out.
Okay.
Linda
All right.
Gray?
Hi, thanks again. One thing to keep in mind is the question of whether biomass is being used to generate electricity or heat. And so I think my assumption, I don't know if this is correct, is that in the context of these renewable energy generation targets, that most all of them are in the context of whether they generate electricity. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I don't think that the Sweetland Farm thing is generating electricity.
Yeah, if this one says, it says in the document that I'm looking at, Linda, production estimates for biomass combine heat and power. So again, maybe if we're just thinking about power, we don't do it. I don't know what obviously they're not connected to the grid, but I don't know what it is doing, but it is a biomass plant.
And Mary, sorry, what siting standard is that referring to? What is it? B, C, D?
I was looking on the top of page 19, Stephen.
Okay.
It says biomass and methane. Like this is where they're going on the siting. This is in 9. In 9, they're going through all the different kinds of energy production.
But yeah,
So
they're
that's what
talking
I'm looking at.
they're talking about CHP, combined heat and power, where like the Dartmouth plant that heats the campus and generates electricity, that uses oil. But I wonder what the size limit is for this, because if you're running a 20 kilowatt burner, and the economics of making electricity on small scale with those things is terrible. And
Yeah.
Okay.
And to your point, Mary, that you want to say something about it, because if the technology changes, you want to just have a gap there that says, oh, we assume no one's ever going to try this, so we won't mention it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think the current energy plan speaks to biomass generation. already. So
When you say when you say the current energy plan, Stephen, just what do you
the current
The
energy
energy chapter of the
the
current.
energy chapter in the current plan?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The vast majority of that is just talking about firewood. When
Right.
they buy as part of the energy plan, it's how many
Yeah.
cords of firewood and who's burning firewood and so forth. That's the
So
bio.
that's generally in the context of sort of current renewable energy sources and what's already present and possible, current energy use, future energy use. So renewable energy generation potential, which is a pathway 9 topic. So we'll fill that out.
Mhm. So one of the things that is, kind of fundamental to what they're asking us to do is to identify preferred locations and unsuitable areas, right? Those two being kind of the bookends of what we need to do. And there's probably other areas that are there are probably some gray areas, but in terms of that. So I don't know whether, Stephen, well, if you had a different place you want to go, but to think about and we've talked about this in the past, how are we going to do this? How much are we going to consult with people whose land we're identifying? And then how do we roll this out? But you may want to talk about other things first, Stephen.
Well,
that's
to that point, I thought on page 42 of the document, not of the packet, but of the document, it has that multicolored 5, the spectrum between unsuitable and preferred, which it's referring to the various things back in the text, but unsuitable, known constraints, possible constraints, prime, and then actual preferred locations, which are specific parcels. Those 5 seem to be useful buckets, and they link to things we've talked about before, but that to me was a helpful distinction.
Yes. I think it's a very informative graphic.
Because like known constraints, they tell you in the text which ones you're talking about, what the sources are for them, compile and put them on your map, and things like that. So I think and then preferred locations, that's a mapping exercise and a siting thing. And I sent Mary, just for your information, I because I had homework assigned, I did it, but then we chose not to. Well, so I was going to put more specific information about the preferred sites that I'd map, which were specific to parking lots and gravel pits.
Yep.
So I did that. I created a Word document that just has 7 or 8 pages of 7 or 8 specific sites on Google Earth showing the size of them and the size of the array you can get. I submitted that to Stephen, and his logical comment was, this is a good subset of the mapping exercise we'll be doing. We'll roll it into that.
Hold on to it till we get there.
Rather than stick it in the packet. But anyway, there were 3 gravel pit sites and 3 or 4 parking lot sites that were listed there.
Yep. And that's work that's going to generally fall under pathway 9F, the prioritizing potential on preferred sites. So that specific call out will be useful there.
I have to say, looking at 42, it's interesting to say the unsuitable areas are the scenic resources, and the known constraints are vernal pools, FEMA, and floodways. It's, because that last group, the scenic resource, like I'm all for that, but that is probably a much more subjective decision. And I would also you know,
Yeah.
say we get into issues of social justice when we start that question, versus look at
I
there's
took
water
those-
here,
I
it's
took
flooding,
those-
etc. Yeah.
I took those just to be examples, not total inclusive. Like there are other reasons for unsuitable areas than scenic resources. There are other known constraints than the 3 listed. And so I just took that as one example, and there would be others. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that vernal pools would be kind of unsuitable, but and floodways, right? You don't want to put it in floodway. So it's just interesting that that's, you know, that would be the example.
Yeah, I think vernal, they may be small and they won't disqualify a whole site, but clearly your map's going to show them as no-go. You
Yeah.
know, not a chance with a buffer around it.
Yeah.
But I would certainly say if you look at the text, I'm pretty sure that under unsuitable, you're gonna have a longer list than just scenic.
I hope so. John.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question on those A through E, at which I can't see right now.
Sorry.
That's all right. One of the, 9, sorry. 9D. 9D
9D. Yeah,
says
that's
ensure constraints do not prohibit sufficient renewable energy. And I believe that has just as much weight as any of the other considerations here. Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the point is the enhanced energy plan to be approved has to provide a credible path to meeting Norwich's target in the state and regional allocation.
Exactly.
If you tried to do an enhanced energy plan with lots of good reasons why you couldn't put any solar in Norwich, you'd have a hard time getting it approved.
I just want to make sure that we don't elide over 9D's requirement that we do not prohibit sufficient renewable energy. Thank you.
Well, and that's what 9C says as well.
Excellent.
Part of our job is to find sufficient land.
Exactly. Thank you.
Sufficient sites. Let's talk about sites too, because I think that's the other. The other is how much do we do what John talked about, just doing at his property, and doing it at parking lots and on current roofs and other things like that. So it's not specifically land.
The town of Norwich has nothing to do with what I put on my roof.
Actually, I think that's an interesting question. I think that's a really interesting question, because if we think about what the capacity is for, you know, if we say, let's put solar on a parking lot at the Monshire, does the town of Norwich not care that the Monshire has done that as it thinks about its reaching its goals? If the town's energy commission is continually and appropriately encouraging people to put in heat pumps and come to their car expo and put solar panels, and in that way takes a town that has a very difficult topography for large solar sites and can identify ways that we have reduced our dependence, then why would we not think that that is something we would want to highlight with the enhanced energy plan?
Well, since you asked the question, first of all, the town of Norwich has no interest in spending as much as I spent per kilowatt.
I'm not talking about how much money people are spending. I'm talking about how we are meeting the
Let me put it this way. We would surely want to seek the most economical approaches, because nobody is going to Well, we don't need to have this discussion now. I don't want to waste your
No,
time.
well, actually, I
So,
do. I actually want to have it with the people on this. Why don't
Yeah.
with
I'll
Ernie
let you
and
people
yeah,
discuss. I don't want to eat up
because
your time.
because I think, again, Jan, as you're identifying places to put solar sites that are not that are on private land, they're all going to be on private lands, right? Unless they're in town lands. But
Right.
talk about a little bit about trying to square this circle we're talking about.
Well, it's a couple of things. One is you can sort of see it on the screen here, standard 6, which isn't right in our wheelhouse, but it's going to get talked about, which is efficient building use and conservation and so forth. So there are things that the energy plan will say encourage everybody who can to put rooftop solar on their house. So that there are elements to that in the energy plan. Second, whoever puts it up anywhere in Norwich for whatever reason or economic foolishness it involves, every kilowatt of renewable energy generated on the land area of Norwich is included in our in our credit, so to speak. I mean, barring like where the electricity goes and so forth. But the point is, when the target is stated as 16 megawatts of generation for Norwich, if that's on Jack's roof or my roof or on the Monshire's parking lot, it all rolls up against that target. We have, I don't know what it is, it's more than 2 megawatts of rooftop solar in Norwich now. That's clearly part of our what we were credited for. I do think the economics piece is important, because even just saying we're going to do parking lots, putting a canopy
Yeah, it's
for a
expensive.
parking lot is more expensive than putting PV in a field. There's no question. And so those are part of the balancing act that you have to do in siting.
And by the way, you use the word foolishness. I'm not suggesting that I did anything foolish. Every step of my plan over the past 8 years has paid for itself at above market investment rates.
Oh, I'm with you. I've got 12 kilowatts on the roof right now, and there's nothing like drought for solar generation. But I'd rather have a little more balance to it.
But my point was that it does count towards our goal, and so that is that was my point, not who's paying for what. And so I think that's just in a town where where we do have some geographical constraints.
Yeah, and one more thing to that point, Mary, is that's the reason that we map the presence of three-phase power,
right?
Because that relates to the economics of any decent-sized solar project. If they have to run three-phase power a mile and a half, it hurts the economics of the project.
Right. So you can identify land that could be, but but until that is expanded, it will not happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
So back to pathway 9. Ernie, you have a question?
I just had a sort of an incidental question that I was just pondering about when talking about three phase and expanding it and all that sort of stuff. I haven't really gotten a good fix on what the industries, the power distribution industries, take on having to accommodate solar generation. I mean, of the expenses that a company has, I'm going to call it street level because it is a formal term for that level of carrying the power, is relatively low cost, and I was thinking that should it where the three-phase actually is, at least along major roads, for instance, where it stops, let's say, for instance, on Route 5, you know, should we really be worried about that? Because eventually it's going to get expanded no matter what. They'll expand it for their own purposes. But if do they view solar as their purposes, or are they still hostile to solar? I don't know. I don't have any kind of a read on the industries involved on how they really feel about having to accommodate solar, because I can tell you that in my experience with the field when I was working with it, they were utterly hostile to any sort of renewable energy. Now, of course, we're talking 35 or more years later, but I don't think the industry is particularly I still don't think they're particularly fond of renewable energy being as tied as closely as they are to fossil fuels and nuclear nonsense. So, you know, are they going to eventually, I mean, how seriously should we worry about their concerns about expanding three-phase?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it relates. We've said this a couple times before, and I think it's a useful premise. We can talk when we're talking about preferred locations on this in the 5-step thing. So preferred locations are specific sites. Those should be ones that are decently economically viable. You know, they're within striking distance of three-phase power now. If we're mapping potential in the future, we shouldn't make assumptions about technologies or
okay, that's
infrastructure. So
you're allaying my concerns here.
that seems to be the distinction. Like, we can't assume the future, but if we're making a statement about a present status of a preferred location, we can't assume.
But we can add preferred locations too, is kind of the implication there.
Well, X number of years from now, we're going to update this whole thing, and if they've extended the lines or if the technology's changed, then we would adjust.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that we also would realize that we can actually use this process also to put a bit of pressure on them if we think that they should be expanding those lines and allowing us to expand the locations. Expand where the preferred locations are if that's what we choose.
There's a good example of that simply on either side of the Pompanousek. That Bogey has 2 gravel pits, one on south of Pompanousek and one north. The southern one has three-phase power going to it, and the northern one doesn't. I didn't bother to map the northern one as a preferred location for that reason. But we put it in as a potential, but not as a preferred specific site.
Well, it could be
And we have
preferred if somebody
potential
would
preferred?
invest in it. If somebody, I'm putting it preferred and say if somebody cares to fund that part of it.
Well,
Right.
I'm thinking just of the conventional way of how the lines get expanded. I mean, somebody somehow offering to install a line is a whole nother thing, and of course it would be, you know, there would be nothing, we wouldn't refuse them, but really the power company should be doing its job and expanding the lines.
Yeah, I think it's part of the mapping exercise. It's not actually what this subcommittee will do, because that's going to be data. In the data field, it says what are the substation capacities, where are they, and where is three-phase power. That'll show up coming current data.
But you know, but Ernie, to your comment, you know, the power company is going to make its investment where it gets the biggest return. And so they're not going to necessarily increase three-phase power in Norwich so that we can all feel great about being able to, you know, build another solar facility that may or may not have the impact that they are hoping for, right? They're not going to be thinking about what does each and every town need, as opposed to where should they be making the investment for the overall. I mean,
I don't know. I think I think it is their responsibility to be considering what the towns want too. I mean, not just what the
Well,
businesses want.
Yeah.
they're
I don't know.
well, that's probably a bigger discussion, but you know, if I were in charge of a utility, I think you'd be thinking about where the biggest need is and where the biggest potential is and where can you use your, you know, how best to invest your assets, not how to
Right,
make
but I'm saying,
little Norwich feel good,
I'm
right?
assuming that it's not just, I mean, it's not, if Norwich starts putting in enough, solar, let's say, and I don't know for a fact whether this is possible, but let's say we're able to have a modest amount of land dedicated to solar, and it actually produces more power than we need. Then what are we going to do? Are we going to limit ourselves because no one's going to buy that extra power, or are we going to still install it because you know that someday they are going to want it when we have the opportunity to install it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all goes to energy planning under the PUC and state level things, you know, the net metering laws and
Right,
so
but they get some of their input from us. They will be paying attention to us. Not, and I don't mean just us Norwich, I mean us as in the towns in general.
for the sake of our charter, I would say we have the current target, which is the 16 megawatts, and obviously redoing this plan, we will check whether or not that's still our target or whether that's changed. But and we are rough number, you know, a quarter of the way there. So we need to site and find sites based on the current infrastructure and the current technologies and move that along. So I think let's do that first, and then we'll worry about state and utility level energy planning.
Okay, I mean, I'm just being kind of a nudge because as a design engineer, you always think about the next step. You don't just think about what's in your hand, what you have to deal with now. You think about how whatever you're dealing with is going to be used later too.
So you're saying then, Jan, that we have 1600 megawatts is our calling, right? And we've got
16 megawatts, I believe, is the Norwich target of renewable generation, of
16
which,
megawatts.
and we're probably between rooftop and a few 500s dotted around. That'll be part of the data we get. My guess is we're in the 4 or 5 category. I don't know, Linda, if the Energy Committee knows where we stand against that 16, but my estimates were somewhere in the 4 or 5. Anyway, that just it's the right 9C, identify sufficient land for renewable energy generation. That means that you can, and then that first line in the sub bullet, reach targets based on potential, on population. So we need to be credibly saying, and they give you the 60 acres per megawatt thing they have there.
So that's 720 acres.
Yeah, because they're assuming that only a subset of the acres you identify get developed, whether the owner doesn't want to, even the ones that meet the criteria, a developer doesn't show up and want to do it. The owner doesn't do it.
But what I'm getting at is if we need 12, you know, if we need 12 megawatts to meet and in order to do that, it's saying we need 60 is the amount we need to be able to then have the fallout of getting enough, or is that that's the kind of arithmetic?
I think the 60 has built in fallout, a small percentage that is, so yes, we need roughly
That's interesting
to identify 700 acres that's suitable because of that math.
How many acres do we have in Norwich?
20,000. I was going to say
Okay.
2,000. Yeah, it's something.
Okay, okay.
It's in
Yeah.
it's the energy,
Yeah.
the current energy plan, the current
It has
energy chapter
Yeah.
has
has
that.
that. Okay.
The,
I'll go
the
back and look at
renewable
that.
generation target for 2050 in megawatts is 19 to 23,000.
Okay. That's for the town, 19 to 23.
Yeah, if I'm reading this correctly, yeah.
1,000, and then you divide that by the factor per year. That's megawatt hours per year. So you divide that by whatever it is, 1,100 for the kilowatt hours per rated capacity. That's how you get those 16 something megawatts of rated capacity.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Stephen, you can keep going, or you can start. I mean, I think the other thing is, what does the work plan look like? What do you know? Jan has done some homework. What homework are we going to assign to Ernie? And what will I do?
Okay.
Maybe-
What would you like to do?
How do we go from the maps? How do we use the maps? What do we have, and how do we go from maps to criteria and back and forth? Yeah, I think the work plan is definitely the question.
Yeah. I would say that, you know, under the sort of mapping standards, that the sort of constraint maps, the sort of raw data is something we can probably do within the month before we meet again. And maybe using those as a basis of, you know, a work plan is a good idea. Or, you know, we can, you know, because all of the sort of pathway 9 is, you know, sort of dependent on the mapping, right? So I mean, I kind of think that, you know, the mapping activity is prerequisite to, you know, really getting into a work plan, you know, in detail. What do you think?
And can you? I think I agree. Are you our mapping guy? Can we? Because this is if we're starting
Between
with
me and Pete Fellows, yes.
GIS and running on GIS, and it's Norwich layers and so forth. I take that the mechanics of mapping is in your court.
Yeah. Yep. I have most of these layers available, you know, and if needs be, I can reach out to Pete Fellows at Two Rivers to have him do like solar rooftop potential mapping, you know, some of the more arcane stuff. But yeah, I could definitely take that piece within and probably produce it within the next month.
That's great. And in terms of any kind of parameters that would be helpful. I mean, we obviously have the one that we've talked about, which is, you know, access to three-phase power. We have that. You know, we've got issues around, you know, proximity to vernal pools and water, et cetera.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we've talked about in this group and had some exciting discussions is things about slope. Now, I noted I was very pleased when the Two Rivers folks talked about that as they did their regional planning. And their definition was slopes over 35%. And so, you know, I think that, you know, we've been throwing kind of darts as, you know, where does it belong? With some people saying, oh, you can build on anything, doesn't matter, to some of us saying, well, you know, we don't want to see it, so let's not have it. And so, so I would say that is a way of moving the conversation forward, hopefully in a productive way, that we align with that figure and have it be consistent with what TRORC is doing in their work. And so that'd be a parameter for the mapping work that you're going to be doing, Stephen, is to look at slopes over 35.
Yeah,
as not, you know, as no-go areas.
Yeah, 35% is pretty steep, but I think that the mapping could drive a lot of this. Where,
yeah,
Stephen, if you can take the constraints as defined in or suggested in the plan, there are a few that you know, so it includes the habitat ones and the corridors, wildlife corridors, and class 1 list blocks, they're all in there. So if you get those down on the map, and then we start listing the open questions. So, okay, here's slopes. And if it's 35%, all right, we're showing, here's the map, 35%. Yep. And here's the this is the list of constraints. It'll be the titles of the layers essentially. And then, because it's sort of like the housing conversation we had, which was if you put those constraints up and you cover the entire town with 0 remaining, then you have one conversation. If you put those constraints up and you've got, way more than 700 acres remaining that's still potentially suitable, you have a different conversation. So I think the mapping can really drive that, starting with the kind of agreed upon constraints.
Yeah, I mean, the outcome of the mapping exercise is the sort of prime resource areas. What you have left that is really like best suited for renewable energy projects. So I think you're right. I think it's a good idea to do it that way. And it's a pretty short list. So I have all of this data available, including slope aspects, all of the elevation maps. So we need to sort of get to these questions. So I'm happy to take that on with, Johan, you and I can do that.
Maps, I'm happy to do that. The one thing I would point out on the three-phase power and the distance, and Mary, I had this conversation with Annette when I started looking at maps, and I asked her specifically at what distance from current three-phase power do the economics of a project change significantly? And she sent me several references that looked at that, and it got to like half a mile, the curve starts to climb. But if we're mapping, that's an easy one to just say, here's where it is, and put a bubble around it at an offset of half a mile, and then write it down as an assumption. And that'll show us what it says. But anyway, there is some data and reference background to that half mile bubble around current power.
Okay, Linda.
Thank you. I just want to make a rather detailed question with regard to the Two Rivers and the 35% slope. I just want to raise a question because I remember hearing that at their presentation about the new mapping stuff under Act 181. And the question I want to raise is that coming from them relate to housing, or does it relate to anything? Because I just want to have that question raised. I don't know the answer to it. So there we go. I'll end. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we've got the mapping kind of as the first step of what we need to do.
Yep.
And if you find that, if you just keep it so that we'll have the layers, and that's really what you're going to do. You're going to put the Norwich up, and then you're going to say, given the assumption of this for slopes, boom, here's that layer. Given this assumption of distance to vernal pools, boom, here's that layer. Distance to three-phase power, here's that layer. And so we'll have a list of the siting criteria assumptions and set points right alongside those mapping layers.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good starting point.
Yep. The prime and secondary resource maps.
Yeah. And I think to flag what we have and what we need, what we're doing and not doing in this group and so forth. Because, for example, scenic resources, the current map of scenic roads is 25 years old and not particularly helpful, but they're also, if you look at example energy plans, they have very specific and very nice viewshed, scenic viewshed maps that say this whole area is visible from this road or whatever. So we would flag that. This group could flag it back to the full PC to say, we're not going to update the scenic resources, but we want to reference it, and we don't have a map that's current. And there'll be
I agree. I think, you know, scenic resources are a secondary constraint if they're an actual constraint at all, right? You know, we want to start with the things where it's, you know, essentially illegal to construct, right? Floodplains, wetlands, etc., and work out from there.
Oh, well, let's ask a question just because it's a little more defined than scenic. I'm not sure I agree with you, Stephen, but
I agree with that.
but I would ask, so let's ask the question about ridge lines. So the zoning and the plan already identify ridge lines and define them, and have a map to them on, and so I would assume that ridgeline map, ridgetop map, is a layer, a constraint layer.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
that one, which may be different than what's in the state guidelines or whatever, but current Norwich conversations on siting have put us to that position.
Right, because that one hits a few different points in our plan, which say not within the sight of public roads. People don't, you know, there are a whole lot of reasons why ridge lines have been in the current plan, which is a very open and inviting to solar. That is one of the ridge lines, the shoreline in the village. Are no-go areas. So I think that's when we think about our role, which is not simply to identify as many places we can to do it, but as it says in our charge now, to think about it with regards to the state laws, to the topography of the area, to the character of where we live, and to the wishes of all the people in town. I think we have to be broad in our consideration of that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And sort of looking a bit deeper, you know, standard 13B, known constraints are defined as likely, though not absolute, unsuitability for development based on statewide or local regulations or designated critical resources. So our local regulations, like ridgelines, like the scenic resources, will inform that known constraint.
Thank you. Linda Gray.
Thanks. With regard to ridgelines, just 2 points. One is, aren't the current restrictions that Norwich has relating to ridgeline with regard to being able to see any kind of development on them, not a absolute no-go area, but depending on if you can see it, and if you wish to make it a no-go area for solar, I think you are obliged to make it no-go for any other kind of development as well. So I just want, if I have that understanding correct, I just wanted to highlight that for you.
Yeah.
And I think that my understanding in reading the plan is that it is not consistent. And that is part of the challenge that the town has had. Because it does say very clearly at the beginning that there are 3 areas where there will not be where the solar development is not permitted, or where the solar development is not permitted, and it's ridge lines, shorelines, and downtown, and so, you know, kind of large scale. So I think we've got inconsistency in my reading.
I agree with that.
And to Linda's point, it's true that you can't have different rules for solar than you have for other development. That's
correct.
State law. So
correct.
we need to, that's where the clear community standards come out, because I think what we're going to do is it's going to be an 80-20 thing. We're going to do this mapping with the known constraints and all the nice guidance that's in this document. And we're going to get 80% of the way there. And it's going to flag the policy questions and the not sure abouts and the unclear stuff. And that's when we do the work to say, how do we talk about scenic? How do we talk about ridgeline? That is then to our charter, a clear written community standard that is useful in a PUC Act 248 hearing, ...
And I think it needs to be absolutely crystal clear, because I will, just to look backwards, we have this group, a prior group approved a large solar site on 8 acres of land on a ridge line in view of many town roads. And so that is not well done, in my humble opinion, and it needs to be clear so that people know in the future.
Well, and I agree, and I would point out that if you just look at our target and say we need to do 10 or 12 more megawatts, that's 20 or 24 of those type projects.
Yeah, and this is
and so if we're not clear about it, or if
or as I can see,
granted, in Bogey's, Bogey's north southern pit there, you could put about 3 megawatts. So there, we're not necessarily talking about putting lots of 500s everywhere. But anyway, the amount of trouble and the amount of difficulty and years of battle for 500, which is essentially, a small percentage of what we're supposed to be helping happen, we got to do better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm getting back to my agenda. My other screen is running out of power. Let's see.
Minutes is all we got from here, as long as
That's it. Okay. Anything else people want to, in terms of discuss the mapping requirements, anything else? Oh, well, actually, why don't we approve the minutes and then public comment? Oh, Ernie, go.
Well, we discussed assignments, and
Yes.
I'm waiting for one.
I think if Stephen can do, and then we gate the next meeting to what we're asking to do on the maps. What you should do, Stephen, is not try and do our work for us, but leave all the open points, just flag all the open points. We have a steep slope number we need to talk about, and then that will be the work plan. So we'll come back to this meeting with all of these open questions that you have flagged, and then we parse them out.
Agreed. In the meantime, Ernie and Mary, if you'd like, I think the document, the Colchester document that this guide calls out about scenic resources implementation is probably a worthwhile read.
Okay, great. The
And
Colchester
I can
one.
send that along to you if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
please.
Yep. Yeah. And any models that I find from other towns.
Yeah, that may be because if you see scenic, we know is one, steep slopes is if there are any others like that, and you have either background references or examples, send us homework to those.
Okay.
I can ask Annette if she has any that she also thinks are really well done. She's pointed us in good directions, and it would be helpful. I don't know, Stephen, if you could can we post those on our website too, so other people who aren't on the committee who might wish to look at it would have a chance to take a look too, so we are all kind of having a shared kind of vision of what these things might be.
Yeah, I mean, let's maybe talk about that offline to sort of figure out exactly what you're after there. But yeah, I'd be happy to.
Like the Colchester plan or something like that, just to have it be in a folder of interesting information as we're developing this.
Yeah, why don't we have a folder that is, we're going to want a big folder essentially for the enhanced energy plan activity, a working folder. It's not It's not a working folder like we have group edited documents in it, but it's all the reference stuff.
Yeah.
And then we can point, so
A library.
if I'm
Yeah,
talking,
it's a library, exactly, exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
talking to somebody on the street and I can say, oh, if you go on our website and you click on the link for Enhanced Energy Plan Working Group, and in that folder, you'll find this.
Okay.
Except this is
Yeah.
a solar group, but yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
Anyway, yeah. If I have any more questions about that,
Yeah.
I'll get back to either of you or both of you.
I
But
do
sure,
wanna
it's
say-
easy
yeah.
easy enough.
I do want to say, I think one of the challenges of this group for me is that because we are 3 members, 2 of us can never talk about anything in between meetings to try to figure things out. And maybe that's just how it is. We can talk to Stephen and he can talk to somebody, and yeah, Ernie.
That's what I was just going to suggest.
Yeah,
What's
or
that?
you know,
Yeah.
you can disclose in open meeting that you had a conversation and bring that conversation to the group at large, the committee at large. Then it is in the public record. I mean, I think it's it's the action of meeting behind closed doors, having a discussion, making a decision, then actioning that decision that was not made on the public record that is really the dangerous territory.
Yeah.
I think you're
Yeah, at this point, I think using Stephen as do it kind of hub and spoke with Stephen as the hub is a good starting point.
Yeah.
If that's too constraining, we can talk about it. We can pool the members or somehow get a bigger number or something, or get some guidance.
Or I don't know whether you can say this is a planning committee conversation, in which case 2 of us can have a conversation versus this is a subcommittee conversation. I don't want to do things improperly, but I also think that we are restricting ourselves to having collaborative discussions once a month, and I don't think that's helpful.
No, I think
No, I
that's
don't-
actually a good point, Mary. If we simply said, if there is now a topic on the full planning commission's docket, which is an enhanced energy plan, then that means, and this group, this subcommittee is working on a small subset of that.
Right.
Then if I'm talking to you about the broader topic of enhanced energy plan, that's a PC 7-member conversation of which any 2 of us.
Okay, I think that's great, because I think that will help move our work along and help the kind of level of thinking that we're able to bring to these meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if we can set our next meeting date, whether the October 21st, that's the week after the planning commission. Is that what we should do it the week after, the week before?
We were,
The week before doesn't work for me, the 7th.
no, I think the week before is too soon. I guess
So the
it's
21st.
The 21st is the night that the energy committee is meeting.
because that's
Okay.
how we're in trouble.
Yeah,
And-
so we don't
Yeah.
want to do that. So how about the 28th then? Does that work for people?
It gives Stephen another week to do his math.
Excuse me, I do want to say the Energy Committee meets the 4th Tuesday every month. And it looks to me like
Thank
that
you, Linda.
21st is the 3rd, so the 21st does
All
not
right.
conflict.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. I'll fix my calendar.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you lost a week, Stephen. Sorry.
No problem.
So that means
Okay.
we can do the 21st.
I can do,
21st, we'll do the 21st. Yep. Okay, doke. Thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and can we
All right.
approve the notes?
move to approve the minutes of 7:22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any additional conversation? Okay,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
So-
Move to adjourn.
yeah, okay. All in favor?
Fantastic.
Good night,
Thanks.
everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.